Welcome back to The Blend with Kenz and Chan.
The blend. Oh, some technical difficulties this afternoon, but it's honestly yet to be none yet. We are not ever having great luck with the tech.
It's honestly insane that it's just continues to be this way. We were just asking ourselves, but wonder if other people struggle as much as we do. So, would be interesting to know.
But we're rocking and ready now. Here we are.
Exactly.
So, last time we did kind of dive in a little bit on burnout and that feeling and talked a bit about it, but I knew that there was a lot more that we could go deeper on, so we wanted to dedicate a whole episode to that. And there's a lot of side conversations that I'm sure will go, lots of tips and tricks, lots of experiences we can share with what that feeling is, but it's definitely a struggle and it's never easy or that easy to talk about, honestly, either, because I feel like it is so tied to, so speaking for myself, my ego for sure. Like, I feel like it's not I don't want to admit burnout, because it feels like a loss or you know, you want to be able to do everything and never have any issues. And emotionally, like those challenges are easy to not prioritize because it's not like, where it's physical pain. If you can't walk, you're going to go to the doctor. Like, whereas if you're hurting inside, it's so much easier to like push aside and like not handle. So it can be really a challenge.
Yeah, that's really well said. And I think too, like the more I've been thinking about burnout and what kind of the social norms and expectations are, which now I feel like things are really shifting and even like generationally, like I know like as like on the cusp but still millennial, I know that like even the way we think about things versus Gen Z, I know is different and like I feel like they are just naturally better at negating burnout. But with all that said, I feel like I can really just talk about my experience, and I know you can talk about yours and the intertwining of that. But I've been thinking a lot about like, where does this expectation of needing to constantly be on, productive, working, and unfortunately, I feel like we kind of have a lot of reasons coming at us. And again, I can only talk to my experience, but like, being a founder and raising money naturally every minute of every day, like you're technically like have the fiduciary responsibility of delivering. Then, there's the self pressure of like being naturally, even looking at Enneagram, like us being achievers, we're going to put that on ourselves. And then as being women, naturally, we have to show up feeling like we're more put together, more poised, more intense, like really leaning more into that male energy, which like takes a lot of effort. And so there's all these different reasons for why. Then on top of that, there might be family pressure, just other things that happen. But yeah, like it's, I still, even though I know it's not what I want, I still feel this pressure that I always have to be on, always have to be delivering, always have to be seen as working my ass off. And it's like, I'm getting better at that, but it's still a problem.
I agree. I feel like it doesn't ever. I mean, maybe we can relax a little bit this late in the game, but it still just doesn't like. I think us as people too, and I think you're right. The women aspect, like you do kind of have to keep always faking it. You don't want anyone to like. You don't want to be honest and vulnerable with just anybody all the time, and it's kind of hard to find people and like pockets of time when you can be open and honest about it. And like I know, most guys don't necessarily like open up about things with the bros, and maybe they do, and that's awesome, or they have significant others and they can do it with them. But um, yeah, I do feel like we kind of have to take on that masculine energy of just like shutting down emotions to be okay, quote unquote, and pretend
Yeah.
we're okay all the time. And it's like I I don't it's hard to describe it. I feel like competitive with myself
Mm-hmm.
where like, I'm like I'm not going to like even let myself down. Like my standards of myself like working hard are so high. Like it's not sometimes yes, of course I'll compare myself to other people too, but like it's tough when you even kind of like set this own standard and the standard is like BS. Like it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be oh that I'm successful because I'm losing sleep. Like that's not really like something to seek, but it almost like feeds the ego in a way.
Yeah.
Kind of toxic.
And I totally. And I feel like even now, maybe it's catching up with us because I think that also, like, in these kind of beginning phases of output, like, you don't have that creeping chronic burnout. So you're just pushing, pushing, pushing. I mean, it's crazy to think how long we have cranked and through the world events that we have had to navigate and survive as a business and, emotionally and mentally as people, as so many have. And I think that's why there's also this just like collective exhaustion right now, because it's like there's just so much that continues to happen in the world. It's really hard to not think like existential while also trying to like deliver in your work or in whatever you want to have that output in. But I even think like now, because of all these years grinding, it's like really catching up to us. And now we're having to have the hard conversations of like, oh shit, how do we keep navigating this? And we've seen, unfortunately, the path where you can fall off the cliff and not return. But we've always, I think, kind of just like skidded over the edge, but we came back. But now we're sitting here being like, okay, like we want to finish strong. How do we do that?
Right. Yeah. And I think too, like after so many years, we our expectations of ourselves and standards might even be raising. It's like, well, obviously I'm going to work harder with 10 employees than I did with
Mm-hmm.
none. I have more things to do. Like there's just so many like narratives you can say of like why you should feel a certain way. But bottom line is if you aren't feeling that way, like you shouldn't fight it. And I'm like telling this to myself more than anything too. Like I absolutely number one and the number one person that does. I fight all day. If I'm like feeling a negative emotion, I'm just like, nope, don't have time for that. But it doesn't really work. Like in the long run, it's just going to keep coming back.
Yeah, I think that's a big realization. And I, you know, it's just been a wild experience, I think, for us. And we talked a little bit about this last episode, but something that's been so beautiful to me in our relationship in life that's like blended is like it's okay to tell each other we're not okay. And something that we've always seen is like, it's just, I think it's magic. It's like kismet, but we're never down at the same time. And we're always the other ones there to like lift each other up. And of course, like we have to go on this own individual journey of finding happiness, finding balance, finding that right pace of life for ourselves. But it's been such a gift that I get to come to you as my best friend and business partner and know that you're going to get it. Like that is such a gift to know that someone is in the trenches with me and has, honestly, this sounds fucked up, but has like felt that low. And yeah, that's been
Yeah.
a really interesting, I think, development together.
Yeah, that's the way it like should be. Like I think we both know we can be honest and open with each other and should and do and have gotten better and are pretty good. Like, I think we probably have a better relationship than most other founders, you know, like I think we just really work hard to prioritize our relationship because it has to be good for things to work. Like,
Mm-hmm.
similarly, if you're burnt out just from work, similarly, like if you're burnt out or like there's an issue within a relationship, that also can't keep like riding out without being addressed. So I think we do a good job of like being open and honest, but um I know I've definitely had times where I'm like, man, Chan is like motivating me. She's doing great. So I want to be doing great too. And that almost like it like pushes me to keep going, but could like in a turn
Mm-hmm.
in turn like be almost a competitive way to be like, well, I'm not gonna be the one to like quit first or stop working first or like ask for more or take more time off. Like, I think 90% of the time it's such a like benefit because it's like, well, yeah, we're gonna keep motivating each other and like us being working together and like seeing the other one is like a bonus. But then yeah, I think it's also like can be a situation where you're like comparing yourself and like wanting to be better and like not understanding why, we're not always the same, but that's just human nature.
Yeah. So, if you're down, I would love to ask you, what have you found that helps you recognize, that you're starting to experience like deep exhaustion or burnout, with working? And then what are you finding, or what have you found that helps you through that?
Yeah, I'm definitely down to talk about it. I think it's needs to be talked about. I think I will start to, I mean, like at the lowest points of just it's honestly always tied to, for me, tied to like negative things happening. And in my experience, it's a lot of times when like a lot of little things like are building up and I start to get the feeling of like that's a mountain I don't know how to tackle, and it's a pretty like hopeless feeling, and then like very like unmotivating. Like it makes it
Mm-hmm.
hard to think about the business and like the day to day when I'm like, well, this problem I know is arising and coming, and like I don't know where to start with that. So that's when I start to just feel the like underlying kind of shittiness. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll be even just, it could even start with like you know, a customer is complaining, like something kind of small, not a huge deal, but it just kind of starts to set you off. And then other stuff kind of spirals. And this is just in a day. Like, obviously, burnout happens from like years and like a long, long time of dealing with the same thing or not dealing with things either. Um, but that's when I can really start to like feel it, is like the hopelessness and just kind of letting it keep going. It's like, unless I try and shut it down and find positive things, like it kind of just keeps going. And then and then I just feel kind of like in a rut. Um, but I think things that I do that really help, and I am talking more like thinking more long term, because I think there is like a ton of easy short term things, like I mentioned last episode, like meditating. Like, I do think that's a good way to start the day, kind of clear your head. Like, that's always going to be a positive, but that might not like cure burnout, just like doing little things every day. If you're still dealing with the same problems, it may not be the full answer. So more long term things, in my opinion, that I think are good, and I'm still like working through this, so I don't even know for sure if this is like good enough, but setting boundaries, definitely saying no more, to other people, other commitments, even taking on more work. So tied to that is like delegating, like being able to delegate stuff and give it to other people, or even if you don't have somebody on the team that like could take it over, stuff is worth outsourcing sometimes too. It's like, all right, let's
Mm-hmm.
hire a company that can do this thing that we all hate. Like, I mean, like accounting and like doing our numbers, that was something that was like one of the first things we ever hired for and outsourced for many years ago. But like, that's the one of the first, like something that you hate doing, like get it off the table. Just like stop. It's not going to help. And yes, of course, like early days of being a startup, saving money is so valuable and like you do have to do everything your own. But once you get a chance, like get rid of the things that you actually hate the most or just like suck at and don't find any joy in would be my recommendation. Um, and yeah, saying no. So even like whether it's other organizations, even people, friends, relationships that kind of like suck energy from you, it's really hard to go into that after when you're feeling burnt out and it's like you only have time for things that are going to fill you up and like get you ready for the next day. So I've really this year even like really toned it down with like all the events I go to or networking things, organizations, committees, boards, like different things that I normally like am super involved and like to be on. There's some things I still do really enjoy that do fill me up, but the things that don't, goodbye. See you later.
It's amazing to recognize what fills you up, because I think that there's like also such, of course, when like starting a business with growing it, there's this mentality that like you just gotta do the shit with it and like you just gotta do it. You just gotta network, you just gotta do these things. But I do feel like the more we're growing, we can see like, okay, there's ways to do it that work for me. And it's okay to have
Yeah.
boundaries within that.
And you do have to customize it to you. Like I struggle because and I'm sure you can relate, like I am extroverted, so being social does fill me up, but to an extent, like obviously being around people that don't align with you or have the same values or get what you do, that's not going to fill you up. So, not every social situation is going to be a good one. Like finding the right people to hang around and that you can be honest and vulnerable with, I find is really important. And also just like knowing there's a balance. Like I'm trying to get so nitty gritty of like, what is my social limit? Like, when was it? A couple days ago, I got home pretty late at night and from just events and and then I got wine with some friends and I was dead. Like I was just like, wow, I feel like my brain is just fried. And I was like, oh yeah, because I've been literally on and social for like 8 hours. Like, no shit. And before, I think I just wouldn't even like have considered that that's just like that's life. And that has been my life for so long of just like on to the next thing, going to the next meeting, going to the next thing. And then same, still doing it in social life too, even after work. And it for me is definitely just not sustainable. So I'm like, okay, find little breaks in there. Don't do things like 7 hours straight where you're having to be social. Like that's gonna hurt. What do you find is your kind of like limits or where you're starting to like make changes and avoid feeling? I feel like you're really good at it.
It's it's been like it's been a big process, and our dear friend Nora taught me this term, and I'm like realizing I'm having it more and more, but like an ego death, where it's like you thought you were gonna be a certain way, or you just always assumed like this is how it was gonna be, and then like you have this realization that no, it's different, and like navigating that. But to me, I remember having like this, I had this ego that like, oh, like I'm gonna be like spokesperson and I can be like be on like social media and like talk about it and I can like be like those people and I'll go to events and I'll talk and I'll like maybe one day remember one like I was like maybe one day I'll run for mayor. I remember I told you that like years ago. And I was like, I don't know, like I'm good at talking, so like, and I care about the public, so maybe I'll do that. And I think too, also there was such this ego in like I was terrified of failing. Like I was so scared, fear of failure. Like I feel like all my 20s have just been like, amounting. And honestly, if we're like really going back and getting deep, like there's a lot of expectation I put on because of my dad. And, he would hate to hear this. Sorry, Dad, if you ever listen to this, but like, and I know they really meant the best, but like I was a fuck up and, I like didn't really care about school. I just wanted to play music. And I remember him saying like, just like trying to like get me to go. And he's like, and I really don't want to offend anyone by saying this. I'm sorry, but he was just trying to rattle in my brain. He's like, you're not even going to get into community college if you tried. And I remember just like feeling so little about myself and feeling like I didn't have anything to surmount to. And I remember always trying to like beat that and almost like show him, and like the ego death of trying to like be something way huger than you ever thought I was gonna be, bitch, kind of thing. And like that was
Yeah.
tormenting me because then I was so scared of failing at it. And so honestly, a couple of things happened for me that like really changed my personal life is my therapist helped me build like what I guess I have never looked into it. It just worked for me and I did it, but it's called the cadre. And I guess like Parisian women used to do this where like you almost set a set schedule of your life, but then like you can break it. And so for me, like I was found myself going to every single networking event. I wasn't getting home till like 9 p.m. I was having no boundaries for myself. And so I started this thing where I was like, okay, you can only have one day a week or 2 days a week where you do a a go out and do an event, and then on the weekend have like one friend engagement. But like I just needed more time to unplug, to be okay just being with myself, not any expectations. I'm all over the place right now, but it was just like those kinds of things of like removing the ego, being like, no, I just want to be myself. I don't give a shit. It'll be okay. That'll actually make me more intentional, and removing any like ego I had, and then also like the like person I thought I had to be to the public. Because I'm sorry, I hate networking events. I'm actually way more introverted than I ever thought I was. I don't want to do that. And so it was just like being okay with who I really am.
Yeah, I totally feel the struggle of kind of other people putting expectations on you, especially parents or just like outside factors, kind of, like you wanting to be something to either prove or even disprove other people. Like that is such a, I deal with that so much too. But then also feel guilty. I'm like, why do I care what other people think? Like, I shouldn't be doing this for somebody else. So it's like a vicious cycle of like feeling bad about it, but still doing it and like still caring, and the ego being involved. Like, it's a struggle. That is something I'm not at all like conquered. I hate it.
Yeah. And like, I think it was like I had to pinpoint that that's where it started, but then that's like what comes up in business because it's like also too, I have to work through this. I'm nowhere near where I need to be, but like with investors, I wasn't expecting like, and like we tend to have like these male investors kind of takes on like this fatherly figure in a way to us, and the expectations they have of us, and it's like the intensity I put on myself is like truly panic attack, anxiety inducing. like of, you know, signing my name on that dotted line to like receive this money from them is just like that's been a whole process too. And ultimately that whole experience we did have last year, I think we talked, yeah, I think we might have talked about that in the first episode. We're,
Oh yeah. So
yeah, that was like another piece to the burnout where it's like, it's not even business stuff. I'm like, we're just trying to like grow this business, you know? And it's just all these external factors. But all of that to be said, like, it's been a long ass journey and I still have a lot of growth to do. Like, I can definitely speak to what is helping me. And like, I think I'm a very different person now than I was. You can probably, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on that, but I'd assume I'm much different.
yeah, I think you are. You are have definitely changed for the better in that regard. Like I do think you're Zen queen, like peace, love, blessings now. And not like you ever weren't. Like I think you've always had that bone in you. But I feel like you have learned a lot about yourself in the past few years and you're like owning it. Like I can see just even when you're like, yeah, I'm not gonna make a ton of plans this weekend. Like we literally share a calendar so I can see you're not doing anything on Saturday. Whereas a year ago, it was like, oh wow, Chan's starting off at 7 a.m. and not getting home until 11 p.m. What a Saturday. And now shit's blank. I'm like, hell yeah, girl.
Shit's blank. That is where I'm at. And like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've gone through some pretty like spiritual experiences. I'm also that person that I'm like, yo, let's have like a peyote experience. I'm ready. Like, just unlock my brain. But I've found ways to get there on my own. But it's like, I think the artist way was actually really incredible for me, just like coming from being an artist at the beginning. And that was another big reason I realized my burnout. I had no creative outlet. Like, I was just like crunching the numbers, pitching to investors. And that's why I started like pottery and started like journaling more and like writing some music with Connor just to like have a release. And that's why it's like, it's so interesting for me to realize like finding happiness, it has to be individual because what's going to make me happy isn't what's going to make you happy, vice versa. And that's okay. Like, that's why I love asking you, like, what might bring that joy for you because it's completely unique, which is so cool.
Yeah, I think I'm still trying to figure that out. Like I don't totally have like exactly what my map is yet, but I also just got the artist way. I got the book too. I'm going to try that. It sounds like it's a great idea. I do think I've always known that exercise is huge for me. Like I love working out and I love also having that like mini competition with myself that's healthy, you know? It's like I'm not
Yeah.
competing with like how much work I did. It's like how fast I ran or how much weight I lifted. Like that I love and like really does drive me. I don't think I'll ever be like, no, I don't want to work out. Obviously, when it's like early in the morning or if you're just tired, but that always I think is any form of exercise for me really helpful and like definitely gets me going. Um, but yeah, I think I need a really a new good creative outlet. And I think it should be with I'd like it to be music. Like I've told you I've always wanted to like kind of like produce music, like kind of make tracks or something like that. I think I'd like to do that a little bit more cuz music always has been such a huge passion and I feel like it's totally gone from like where I was in college. Like just the amount of time I even spend like listening to music or discovering new artists, going to concerts. Haven't prioritized that. So that is a thing I think I'm really gonna focus on more just because I know it's gonna like always make me happy.
I'm so excited for this next adventure for you. Like, you are like the cool friend. Like, you just have like effortlessly cool music taste. You were always like into the best new music. And I'm just like so excited to see like you get to create that. Like I already know like any mashup you ever do as a DJ, anything you create is going to be sick because like you have such this cool like futuristic funk feel to you as a person. I'm just like so genuinely pumped. And I just like I can't wait to see like just like you having fun with it and it not having to be anything or be something. And like I'm so personally pumped for the tracks to come.
Yeah, I know that's like something I'm gonna want to do, and I just like haven't figured it out yet. But yeah, that's probably got to be my next like priority is like really finding that outlet and making it happen on the reg.
Yeah, and I also too think it's like
What?
I mean, I know I do this, but it's almost like people have this thing where they take just what should be a hobby or an outlet or an interest and we try and turn it into something. Like this was so my bad, but like and it's just our in nature, I think. But like when I started doing pottery and getting like decent at it, I was like, "Oh, I could like sell these plates." I'm like, "Dude, fucking stop." Like just go make a pot. Like, dude, that's all you
Yeah.
need to do. We're figuring it out. We're making it happen. That's really the theme of this. And like I think too why we want to talk about these things is they're honestly the things we never felt like we could talk about. That's almost what I feel like is the true theme of this podcast. Is like, yes, lives are blended. There's so much great
Yeah.
there. There's also just things we felt like we had to keep inside. It's like, no, we don't have to. This can be like our expo hour.
Yeah, even if no one ever listens, I feel better, so that's a win.
Yes. And let's say someone does. So what would you say is making you happy today in today? What is something you're excited about for tomorrow? And what is something that you want to do to bring yourself joy in the near future?
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Um I think even right now, and I feel like I've said like so many different things. So it's this is just me and like this what works for me and anyone can kind of adapt this to them, I hope. But even like, ooh, having a really good meal, like that's something that's so small and easy. Even if you're not a good cook, going out to eat and like ordering your favorite dish and like savoring just like a little something that's like not doesn't have to you don't have to put expectations around it. It doesn't have to be a big date or like expensive meal. Just like, "Ooh, I love that sandwich at that place." Like something like that, I feel like can make my whole day. So just like gifting myself little food outings or like ordering whatever or even making something that I really like is just like a simple, easy, quick, like fun reward that kind of like, oh, something I get to look forward to even. It's so small. I'll even be like Friday at lunch, I'm gifting myself that and it's like gets me through. I'm like gets me so excited. Um which so that's like a little just like a baby thing. For tomorrow, I would say like going to more live music, going to more concerts, I'm going to Bad Bunny this weekend. That's going to be fun. We're going to Bonnaroo this summer. Like having some good live music planned. Love it. Great. And then in the near future, some extended travel, like a legit trip with the intention of unplugging and like really trying to relax rather than just like a every other trip I've ever taken, which is like I'm still fully on and like checking email and like responding to people, but I'm in a different location. It's not that restful.
I love it. It's so good. It's also, I just got to say to your first one, also apologies for June. But to your first one, that's like so impressive. It really shows like how present you are. Like you're taking a minute to enjoy this meal. Like having the gratitude and the like happiness and presence for that. Like I'm really bad at that. I will like find myself just like scarfing down a meal and not taking the time to enjoy it. Like that's really impressive. And of course the live music, I'm so freaking pumped. And I personally am like, oh, I cannot wait to hear about your social, like your immersion trip. It's gonna be, I think, game changer.
Yeah, what would you say those three for you? You said today, tomorrow, and soon. I kind of took it as like small to big things, but
Yeah.
I like the question a lot.
Yeah, no, I like how you answered it. It's crazy. Like this is what shows me how different I am now and like that's okay. Like this is what is like bringing me peace in the madness. I feel like such a grandma with my responses, but like what's bringing me joy today? Like this like genuine connection and real conversation. I feel like I just like thrive on like, going deep. As you know, I tend to do it too much with you. I'm sorry. I just love going deep with you. But I would say that today is making me really happy. And then tomorrow, like I fucking love reading again. Like I love it. And it's like I'm back to my inner child with these like fantasy book series that's like hilariously embarrassing, but I don't even care. Sarah J. Maas, I love you. I know I talk about it all the time, but like that I am pumped about. And then me too with travel on the bigger thing. I am so pumped. Like, again, this shows my grandma self, but getting to take June, my dog, to Cape Cod this summer is like that I'm so amped about. Just like my happy place. Also, that was an ego death, is like, I was like, oh, I always have to be going somewhere new when I travel or always like be experiencing. And I'm like, damn, like it's okay to really love a place and like feel like that's home and go there and enjoy it.
Oh, I love that. Is June going to go on the plane?
To make it happen, we're driving.
Oh, wow. Okay. Love it. I guess that's not a terrible drive. It's a day,
Yeah.
but fun. Oh my gosh, running on the ocean.
Literally my dream. That's why I was like, I don't care. I'll drive as long as I need. Also, her and this dang squeaker. Clearly, we have had some interruptions this go around, but it's been a great sesh, and I love this topic. And I'll be excited to see what we talk about next, because this is kind of the first one we don't have planned. We'll be like, all right, whatever happens, happens.